So today we are working on the LS Miata. So last time, if you guys didn't see the video, we repaired the rear end. Basically, we had our diff cover. I'll show you it because I still got it over here. Split apart on a drag launch, too much force, too soft of a mount, a lot of energy. Well, we broke something. Boom, broke that. So instead of just replacing it, we upgraded it. We went to an upgraded diff cover. I rebuilt this rear mounting section, polyurethane mounts instead of stock rubber. I did make a mistake. This is a trans mount. And basically the way it's designed, these pieces aren't connected. Besides with the poly, it's meant to be under compression, basically the weight sitting on it. It is not meant to have tension, whereas the weight is pulling against it. So this isn't gonna work. We're gonna have to change up the bushing itself, but everything else is solid. Stitch welded the subframe, braced it, and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, we got that back together. We got that fixed. Like I said, a couple little things to tidy up with it, but it is mostly done. So now we're moving on to the upgrades. We have both cosmetic and mechanical upgrades, which are very, very exciting. So stuff that has been long awaited for me. So first thing, the one Achilles heel of this car has been power steering. We've gone through a bunch of normal pumps because they always fail at the wrong time, right before an event. I'd throw another one on and wouldn't think about it till that one failed. And I had one fail literally right at the beginning of competition. I drove 20 hours to Texas to compete, and right at the very start of the competition, the pump went out. Something's wrong with my rack. Oh no. So it's been one of those things, it's been a nuisance. So I finally got around to converting it to an electric power steering pump. So it's the same thing, it uses fluid, but it's an electric pump that we mounted in the trunk, but it has not worked for us. Either the pump itself is weak or, the lines are too long going to the trunk, but there's not enough room in the bay. And I've tinkered with it, I've tried stuff, trying to make it work, but it just doesn't seem like it's gonna work for us or be very reliable. So we're just gonna take this off. We might try to throw it on the RX-7 and put it in the bay and see how it works. But for now, we're taking it off this car and we're gonna be doing an electric power steering column. So this is gonna be an electric motor on the column itself, no fluid. We're gonna depower the rack. We won't have to deal with any of that. Worst case, if it fails, we just have manual steering. So to me, it seems like the most reliable option. It is really expensive and overpriced, but I'm kind of at the point now where it's like, I've put so much time into getting everything else dialed. This is the last thing. It's worth it to just suck it up, spend the money, and hopefully not have to worry about it. So we're gonna be putting that on. We got a bigger alternator because ours isn't gonna put out enough amperage, alternator wiring, and then we've got some other really fun stuff to do. So first thing I wanna do is get this power steering system out and get the column out and get the rack out and all that. So basically, tear down mode. Let's get into it. All right, I got my skid plate off. I got this line off. I drained the system. I just ran the pump until it, was out of fluid. So that way we cleared the feed and return hose. But I'm not gonna take them off just yet. I wanna get the electric power steering stuff in and working before I start messing with that. I went ahead and got the steering shaft off, so we need to pull the column out from up top. But down here, I have another rack, so I'll depower that and swap it in. I just don't wanna go too crazy and then find out that I can't fit the electric motor under my dash or something. So basically the plan is to get the electric column in and working, and then we can go through and swap the rack, pull all these lines and everything out. So that's pretty much everything we need to do down here. We gotta move up top and like I said, pull the column out from the inside. All right, well, we got the steering column out. Wasn't too bad. Here is the column we pulled out of the car. So just a normal Miata column. And then here are all the pieces for the electric column. So we have the electric motor itself. the controller for that. There's a potentiometer here so we can adjust basically the level of assist, how much assist it's getting, how hard the motor is going to work, so how easy the steering or how heavy the steering is going to be, either way. And basically this goes into there, that shaft goes in there, that's where the steering wheel goes, and then this comes out here and then hooks to this shaft and then uses this mount to go to the firewall. The only point of concern I have is you can see how bent my mount is. Now that was intentional because basically we had to get the steering shaft to move over some to shoot past the header. So we're gonna have to do that same thing to this one. I'm just hoping that we can get the bend right and not screw it up, because this isn't just a normal one I can go grab another of. I mean, this is one specifically for this kit. So I don't know. Anyway, basically my plan is to assemble the whole column minus this, because this doesn't fit through the firewall, throw it in and see what happens. Alrighty, I got the column pretty much completely assembled. So we got, you know, our shafts, this shaft down here, bracket, which I went ahead and kind of pre-bent. Hopefully that's enough. Motor, this is where it bolts up to my steering column mount. And then we've got our turn signal stuff, which I don't use, but I keep it because I like having that clamshell there. And then I use my ignition lock and ignition switch to power everything. So anyway, basically got everything on there that we need to pre-install. So now we're gonna try to throw it in the car, see what happens. Hopefully that's bent enough. Hopefully we have no clearance issues. Hopefully it all goes together smoothly. But only one way to find out. Let's do it. Alrighty, well, I've got it fully installed. Come on, light, there we go. You can see the steering shaft went on. So before, so we had a major problem with this car. It didn't want to self-steer and drift, and it turned out to be the steering shaft was binding on the header and this bushing at the firewall. So we made some more clearance and whatever, took the bushing out, and that solved the problem. So right now, with how I have that lower bracket bent, I mean, there is like a fraction, a hair of clearance there, right? So worst case, we got to bend that little bracket a little more, but I mean, it's bolted up and bolted in. It fits up top, fits down here. So I mean, that's good for first try. All right, I bent the bracket over a little more. You can kind of see how it's offset in that hole right there. But it's not touching, going through the firewall here. And now we have a decent bit of clearance where it goes past the header. You can't really see that. But anyway, we got clearance now. Not hitting anywhere, so that's good. That was the main concern, the main goal, the main what if. So now that that's handled, just putting it all together. So I mean, we've got the column secured and bolted in. I need to get the little control box, figure out where I'm gonna mount it, where I'm gonna run the wires, where I'm gonna mount the little potentiometer to adjust the stiffness. Not too bad. The hard, scary part of not knowing whether it's gonna work or not is essentially over. I'm not gonna say that just yet, but you know, it fits and it clears the header and the firewall, so that's good. And it clears, you know, all my other stuff. I was worried the motor might hit my cage bar or something, so I'm really happy. It's a big release. Let's keep plugging away and get her working so we can see what it's like. All right, I got the control box mounted. You can kind of see it right there. There's a bracket and then there's a factory stud that would hold the wiring harness, and it is bolted to that stud. So it's nice, it's secured, it's bolted on, it's up way out of the way. So we've got to figure out where we're going to put our little potentiometer to adjust our stuff. You know, it's not something I think I'm going to adjust very much. Like, I'll probably play with it and then wherever it is, leave it there. And we need to run, I would assume, there's no instructions, but I would assume this is trigger wire just to turn the motor on. So we'll just run this to this wire, which obviously we will reroute, but this goes to my PMU and is already set up and programmed to turn on after 3 seconds, and then I can override it with my keypad, yada yada. Anyway, that is all done, so we're just gonna use that wire since we're not using that pump anymore. This is the Volvo hydraulic electric pump. So we're gonna be taking that out. We'll use that igniter wire, and then we just need to run our main power feed and ground wire to it as well. And then I guess try it out, and then we can put all this stuff back together. Like I said, I try to not put things completely back together until I know they work. Because a lot of times you got some weird issue and then you got to take it all back apart. So just trying to get everything done to make sure it works before I put everything back together. But it's driving me nuts to not put everything back together because I just want it to be together because it's a mess. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to work. I've just kind of been jamming through this because it's just a lot of little tedious wiring work, routing wires, mounting stuff, but we have everything hooked up now. We've got our trigger wire coming from, again, the same spot on the PMU. So basically what's gonna happen is when I turn the key on, and my PMU, which is basically like a little ECU looking thing that's all my fuses and relays. There's no actual fuses and relays, it's all solid state. But anyway, I can program it to do what I want. So I have it set up to where the power steering should come on with the key on, and then that far left button down there, I can press that and turn it off. So if I'm sitting here messing with my laptop or whatever, I can turn it off. I think with this system, it's a little different. From what I remember of driving a CRV, is it only gives power when you kind of demand it. So as you start to turn is when it starts running. It's not like the other pump that's kind of running at full tilt all the time. So anyway, moral of the story is we've got it all wired up and we got it mounted, and we got it hooked up and bolted down. So I'm gonna throw the hub on just so I have something to grab and try it out. Wish me luck. Well, it's definitely working. Let's try to set it down. Be careful because there's no back wheels, so let's try to get as much weight on the front as you can. Okay. Should work. All right. So, I mean, that's me turning it with one hand on just the hub. And then if I turn the potentiometer all the way down, I mean, I can still turn it, but it's definitely a lot more difficult. Crank it all the way up. Yeah, I mean, I'm moving this with literally the car's weight is on the ground and with just the hub itself, and it's working. Kind of spitting fluid out, but it's not, you know, I don't have to worry about it running. We can turn it off. Oh, well. Oh, yep, there, now it's off. Oh, yeah, I can't even come close to turning this thing. Nothing. Let's turn it back on. Wait, there it goes. I can very easily turn it by just the hub. With the car sitting on the ground, not moving. Turn it all the way down. Oops, sorry. It's still turnable by the hub, but I mean, it takes a lot more force. So then turn it off. Oh, and then there it goes. I mean, it's like not even a chance that I'm gonna be able to turn it with just the hub now. So that's sick. Definitely seems like it's working a lot better already than the previous setup. So even honestly on the lowest setting, it's better than the previous setup, it seems. So anyway, now that we've confirmed that it works, we know we're good. At least seems like we're good. We can go ahead and just start buttoning everything back up, getting the interior done, getting the rack swapped out to a depowered rack. We had to also depower a rack, and all the other projects we have to do. But sweet, I'm super excited. I'm super, super excited. That was honestly a pretty easy install. I mean, that went super smooth. So I'm gonna start hammering the rest of this out. I've been fighting with getting the clamshell on that goes here. It's kind of like it doesn't really want to sit behind this steering wheel adapter. It doesn't want to sit in front of it. I feel like I had this struggle before when I swapped columns and swapped all this stuff over to another column, but I don't remember what I did to fix it. So we're gonna leave the interior on for now because I just, you know, one of those things. So we're gonna move to the rack. So I have another MB rack. So we're gonna start tearing that apart and see if we can get it depowered the proper way. There's some stuff I'm a little unsure of on it. So I want to do it with another rack so that way I don't take this rack out, and you know how it goes. So let's grab that other rack and start tearing into it. They didn't make manual racks for the NBs, but basically we're taking a power rack and kind of converting it to a manual rack. How we're doing that is there's a seal inside. So if you leave it as it is, you can use it like this, but you have that seal and everything that's meant to push fluid back and forth there, creating drag and making it harder to steer. So what we're doing is trying to eliminate all that stuff so that the rack can move back and forth easier steering, not as hard on the motor and everything. And then that way, you know, if we do ever have a motor failure and we have to, you know, run manual steering with no power assist, it won't be crazy heavy like it would be with just a normal power rack with everything still inside. So basically we got to start stripping this thing apart and gut it. So let's get to it. We got the rack stripped down to a bare housing. You can see ain't nothing in there, no pinion. We've got everything laid out over here. So what we need to do is cut this off because this is gonna be kind of our pressure builder that we want to eliminate. So we basically got to cut it, try not to score the shaft, and then just break it off. There's also some sort of flex joint in here that people weld because basically it allows a little bit of slop, and it does some stuff with the hydraulics of the power steering and takes up that slop. But when you eliminate the power steering aspect, you have, you know, a few degrees of slop, which we don't want that. I'm assuming it's in here, and we need to take this apart to get to it. So keep on trucking. Alrighty, I figured it out. So this was in there like this, right? And I was looking at it and I'm like, well, the bearing's on this side, it's outside of this, like probably just taps out. Put it in the vise, couple little tappy taps with the hammer, came right out. So basically, this is the control valve that, from what I understand, it determines how much power steering pressure or something. It like varies it somehow. You get play because these two pieces aren't fixed to each other, basically this to this. So what we have to do is throw a little weld here, throw a little weld here, and that will permanently affix the two so we don't have the 3-4 degrees of slop between the two pieces, which will translate to a lot at the steering wheel. I'm just gonna clean it up and start welding it. Be really careful that we don't kink it one way or the other. I'll try to center it, tack, and then yeah, let's get to it. Well, here goes something. Pretty straight to me. Oh, come on. Freaking idiot. I need something to hold this thing. Alright, got everything done. We got this guy off. We got our holes plugged up with our TV. You can get bolts to do this, but you know, tracking down the brake line fittings and all this stuff for this, it was just easier to RTV it. It's not under pressure or anything. It's literally just to keep dirt and water from getting into the rack. Just sealing it off from the elements, basically. But we got that done. We got our deal welded. Looks super straight, so that's good. That's done. Yeah, now we really just need to reassemble everything and swap it into the car. So let's get back to work. Well, I just noticed that on this thing, it wasn't threading in clean. Like, it started threading in good for several turns, and then it got tight, so I took it back out, and the threads are basically broken off. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and pull the rack out of my car, and then we'll use those pieces that I need for my rack, whether it's just that nut or the housing too, and then put it back together. Another thing I want to do is, since we're changing the alternator, it'll be kind of easier to get to everything rack-wise with the alternator out. So we're going to pull the alternator out, then pull the rack out, and then once we put the rack back in, we'll put the new alternator on. Let's get to it. Ta-da! Easy peasy. Alternator is out. Time to tackle the steering rack. The one annoying part about pulling the steering rack on this car is I've got to undo these two dry sump lines to pull the rack out, and obviously there's oil in them. So we got to drain some of the oil out, but I'm going to do an oil change on this during this project anyway, so not really a big deal. Just an extra step. Let's see if we can get this out. Ah, there we go. Steering rack's out. So we need to pull the cap off this one, see if we can put it on the other one. And we need our bushing here. Well, I took the end cap off my rack and the same thing happened because there's a little ding right here that's pushing up the thread. So that little tiny spot right there was eating the threads. So third steering rack is now together and assembled and complete and depowered and welded and everything. So now it's just time to throw it back in the car. All right, we're getting there. I got the lines mostly pulled out from the old electric pump that's in the trunk. I just got to cut the fitting off one to slide it through the hole. Then went ahead and got the rear rotors and brakes back on. I had these off from when I did the subframe swap and I hadn't put them back on yet, so I couldn't put the wheels on. So earlier when we tested the power steering, it was with only the front wheels on the ground, so not all the weight on the ground. So I want to be able to get it down on all fours and really see what it's like, make sure it's good. I got the rack back in, got that all bolted up, got the tie rods in and everything. I got to clamp the boots on, and then we've got to center everything and then put the steering shaft back on. So get the wheel back on, center the wheels here, and then put the shaft back on. So Ben's working on that right now. He's working on trying to get the clamshell to fit that I was having trouble with yesterday. So anyway, while he's working on that, I'm gonna go ahead and throw the new alternator on and see where we're at. What I need to do next, I want to pull this out, pull this these hoses out and pull the electric power steering pump out. Let's get back to work. Look at that. We're getting rid of all of that, which is very exciting. And this was a big improvement from the normal power steering setup. This is a lot less stuff to deal with. And now we don't even have to deal with this. I'm excited, man. I really hope this system works out. Next thing we need to do is figure out our steering wheel. So I think with the column change, basically it pushes the column too far back. So when I try to put the hub adapter on, it hits this trim here, the clamshell. So I'm either gonna just delete all this entirely, pull the ignition switch and all that stuff off, or I'm gonna see if I can slide the column back a little bit more to get everything to fit. So I'm gonna start tinkering with that. So I looked and basically I can't pull the steering column back any further. There's room on the slots where it bolts in up here, but there's not room down there before the joint. Either way, I can't pull it back far enough to make the clamshell work. So I decided to delete the clamshell and ignition switch. I did have to make a new setup to turn everything on because before I just used the key. Change that. It is kind of clever. I'm pretty excited about it because of what you can do with the PMU, but probably smart to just not tell anyone where it is because then nobody knows how to turn my car on. But anyway, so yeah, I got to bolt all this stuff on, get the steering wheel on, clean the interior out. Alright, I got that all back together. It really doesn't look bad because the column is pretty basic. There's not a bunch of, you can take pretty much all the stuff off besides the bare column. So it really doesn't look that bad. It is kind of a big open area down to that cover plate. It would be nice to maybe build one that doesn't have the big hump in it for the clamshell, but definitely also need to blank out these gauges now that we don't have any of the other factory looking stuff in here, get rid of that. But I'm happy with it. It really doesn't look as bad as I thought it would to have removed that. And I'm happy with the new ignition switch, so I'm good with it. Works out. Well, at first it was like, oh man, I really want to keep this. And now it's gone, whatever, good riddance. So wheels, steering shaft, try it out. Let's get to it. Alright, steering shaft is connected. Wheels are on. Take it off the lift and see what happens. Alright, the truth. like I said before, we couldn't get all the car's weight on the front tires because the back wasn't touching the ground, it was still on the lip. So I think this is gonna be about the same, but this will be the determining factor test. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's like one finger. That's at max. Let's turn it down halfway. Still easy. Let's turn it all the way down. I mean, it's still pretty easy. Literally at the minimum, it's not bad at all. Piece of cake. And then we turn it off and you can see easy, 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 easy. It's about to shut off. Easy, easy. Oh, there it goes. Pushing, pushing, pushing. Oh, there we go. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that feels freaking amazing. Oh, this is going to be so much better, man. Oh, this is awesome. Let's turn it down to half. Sweet. Well, we know it works. Man, I am so excited about this. This is so cool, man. I think, you know, I'm going to reserve my judgment for once I drive the car, drive it around and drift it, you know, because that's going to put more strain on it being at under loaded angle. And, you know, I've driven Mustangs with electric racks, the newer ones like drift cars, and it was really, really bad. There was no feedback. It felt like playing a crappy video game. So I am still a little worried that this might be like that, but I'm hopeful that it won't be. So I'm kind of going to wait till then to give you guys my verdict. But I mean, if it works out, this is a really sick setup because you could easily, not easily, but you could definitely DIY this together. Buy the motor and the column out of the CRV, because I think these come out of a CRV, and then just kind of figure out, you know, how to get it basically in between your column. I'm sure there's kits for other cars and whatever. But yeah, I mean, you get to lose all of that crap. I mean, not only did we ditch having a pump and stuff in here, but we have no pump, period, no fluid, no cooler, no lines, no reservoir, no nothing. Like literally just a motor under the dash. Like super, super cool. So anyway, like I said, I'll put this thing through its paces. The plan is I got to finish up the rest of the stuff on the car, doing the trunk, handbrake, a few other mods and stuff, and then we're going to go register it, and then we're going to go drive it and see how it feels. So, oh, and a brushless fuel pump. So we got a handful of things more to do before we can drive it. But for now, that is going to be it. I'll see you guys next time for the test drive. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.